I love Apostle John.
I do too.
I love Apostle John. I love you, bub.
I know you've heard that.
Oh, yeah, bub. So I know the title of my talk this morning is called The Straight Skinny. How many of you in here have been in the Navy? Just me? Okay, so then you have no idea where the title The Straight Skinny comes from. In the Navy, the sort of slang word for truth is skinny. What's the skinny? When are we going to get back into port? When are we supposed to be back on ship? What's the skinny? And that's Navy for what's the truth. When you heard the term straight skinny, that was the ultimate truth. That was the highest level of true truth that there was. That was truth you could depend on. And so the title of the talk this morning is The Straight Skinny. My goal in this is to present to you the truth, but not just the truth, the highest and best truth that you can take to the bank, if you will. And so that's where that comes from. I have a book table in the back. There is multiple copies of a book that I wrote back in 2018 called The Straight Skinny. I wrote it with my nephew, who is a bariatric physician, an MD down in North Carolina, and he and I collaborated on the book. He knows everything. I just happen to be a better writer than him. So if you read this book and you think I'm really smart, then you're wrong. That is not The Straight Skinny. But it is a book that takes all of the politically correct stuff that you hear about dieting and throws it in the trash and gives you the non-politically correct straight skinny about dieting. There's two other books on the table. By the way, the books are donation. There's no price on the books. Whatever you want to give, that's fine. And if you don't have anything to give, then please take the book. The only thing I ask is that if you take it, you read it, okay? And not just put it on your bedside table like the stack of books that I have. Is there anyone that would like this copy? First hand up gets it. Oh, right there, saw it. It's news you lose, Nick. The other two books that are out there, one is called The Measure of a Man. If any of you have been to the conference that we do, I see that hand. If any of you have been to the conference that we do periodically on manhood and maturity, it is the manual of that conference, and it talks about the two great topics of becoming a true godly man. One is making the transition from immaturity to maturity. And how many of you know that doesn't depend on age? That there are plenty of immature 80-year-olds out there. Maturity is a whole different deal. And the other thing is once you begin that transition, what does it actually look like? And so what we try and do is paint a godly picture of what the mature godly man looks. That book is out there. And then last, but certainly not least, is a little small book that I wrote called Get Over It. Put your hand down. Get over it. It's called Getting to Forgiveness That Sticks. I see that hand. Okay, so this book actually came out of a rather spontaneous thing that Apostle John and I did several years ago. He was preaching a series of messages on offenses will come. It's inevitable. You can't avoid it. Offenses will come. And he, in the middle of one of his sermons, he stopped and he asked me to come up and said, "Can you say a few words on the process of forgiveness?" And magically, wonderfully, spiritually, supernaturally, whatever Lee word you want to put in there, between getting out of my seat and coming up front, the Lord put into my heart just a process that was like 5 or 6 separate steps to get to a forgiveness that sticks. I don't know about you, but in years gone by, when I realized that I had a need to forgive, oftentimes it wasn't the first time I realized I had a need to forgive that particular thing. And we think we forgave it, only to find out later on it surfaces again, and we haven't really gotten by it yet. And so this book is designed to show you how to get through a true forgiveness process that enables you to get to the place where that forgiveness it finally sticks. And one of the keys of that book, and I'll just give you a little quick hit on that, is that forgiveness is not the first thing we do. And so often as Christians, that's exactly the wrong thing for us to do. We go to forgiveness and we think it's done, but the hurt, the wounds, they're all there. It's like putting it's like when you were a kid, and you didn't want your mom to know that you'd hurt yourself, so you go upstairs and your arm's all bloody and dirty and you put a Band-Aid on it. And you think, well, I got a Band-Aid on it. That's going to take care of it. And it doesn't. And we're like that as Christians. We want to put the Band-Aid of forgiveness on right away. And no, you got to clean out the wound. You've got to take care of the wounds so that healing can come, so that forgiveness can come. So, amen. All right, so you all know this story, but I'm going to say it anyway because it sort of fits. There was the deacon of the first church in a certain town, and he was a very, very, very godly person. And there was a flood in the town. The river overflowed and it was getting deeper and deeper. And he climbed up on his roof and started to pray. Lord, save me. Lord, save me. I know and I believe you. You can save me. Lord, save me. And he's praying and he's praying and he's praying. And a guy goes by in a boat and says, come on, get in. I'll take you to dry land. He says, no, that's all right. The Lord's going to save me. Boat goes on. Guy continues to pray. Another boat comes up. Come on, get in the boat. I'll take you to dry land. No, I'm good. The Lord is going to save me. Finally, the water is up to the chimney. He's sitting on top of the chimney. He cannot go any higher on the house. And a helicopter comes by. And a guy with a megaphone says, grab the rope. We'll lift you up to safety. It's okay. The Lord will save me. The guy drowns. And he goes to heaven because he's a godly man. And he shows up before the Lord and he said, just one question. Why didn't you save me? And the Lord looks at him and says, I sent 2 boats and a helicopter. The point of that story is, we don't need to be transported across a river if there's a bridge. We can just go to the other side of the river by going over the bridge. Apostle John laid it out perfectly. There is healing. There is miraculous healing. But you know what's even better than miraculous healing? Not getting sick in the first place. That's what he was talking about. That's our part. Taking responsibility for ourselves and our body. So the straight skinny about that is that you actually can do the things that you need to do to create health in your body. Your natural state. You know you were designed by God, right? You know that. And does God ever create bad things? No, he's always good things. So your natural design is in accordance with the will of God. And the will of God is that you would be in health. 3 John 2. That means your natural state is health. Your unnatural state is disease. Your natural state is ease. Your natural state is health. So if we can stop being stupid, we can be healthy. We don't have to become healthy. And that's, I think, what the world is trying to tell us, that our natural state is to be in disease, to be in dis-ease, that's the best we can hope for, is to minimize the disease in our life. When in fact, the reality is our portion is to be in health, that health is our natural state, and that when we remove the stupid stuff, we become healthy, because that's the expression of our natural processes. So one of the first things, and one of the most major things that we deal with when we get serious about health, is what we put in our mouth. There's no question about it. Billy Crystal had a movie years ago, I don't even remember the name of it, but he was an inventor, and he was a terrible inventor. He invented a scale that talked to you, because it was for people that were so fat they couldn't see the dial. So you would step on the scale and it would tell you what your weight was, only knowing, Billy Crystal had always had a smart remark that went along with it. And so the scale that he developed, when a really heavy person stepped on it, it says, you weigh 295, and if you put anything else in your mouth the rest of the day, it should be the muzzle of a loaded gun. It's horrible, but that is our approach to losing weight, is to literally, not necessarily an actual gun. So go to in your spare time, go to Amazon, which is the largest book dealer in the world. Put the word diet book up in the search bar, hit enter, and then look at the upper left-hand corner where it tells you how many hits you got. The last time I did it, it was 115,000 diet books on Amazon. Let's just forget that. Everybody's got their pet diet. And when you ask someone about what's the best diet for me, they don't tell you what's the best diet for you. They tell you what they think is the best diet for themselves. And it might be the paleo diet, it might be the Mediterranean diet, it might be any of a number of diets that are out there and are popular. And I want to simplify all of that for you, because the problem that you have is not food. The problem that we all share is what our body does with the food. Food is not the issue. And actually, let me take it back a step. If you're thinking about going on a diet, don't. It's just a waste of time. Because here's the fact. Obesity is not overeating. Obesity is a disease. It's a disease. Your body is recognized as a disease by the American Society of Bariatric Physicians. It's recognized as a disease by a number of other organizations that are medically oriented as well. And that is why when we diet and we lose some weight and we stop dieting, we go back to the weight that we were at and maybe a pound or two more after we stop dieting. And that's because our bodies, the disease of our bodies is that it traps us in that weight, and it seeks the equilibrium of that weight from that point on. We're going to talk about how to break that in a minute. What we need to do is not go on a diet. What we need to do is change our diet. And so if you're thinking of anything less than a lifetime commitment to a better way, really none of this is going to help you. You'll go on a diet, you'll gain the weight back. You'll go on a diet, you'll gain the weight back, and it will just be a roller coaster. That's not where we want to go with this. Food. All right, so obesity is a disease. What that means is that your weight is a symptom of the disease, not the disease itself. And that's important, because when we're focused on the weight, we're focused on the wrong thing. It's like focusing on the sneeze and not focusing on the cold. Or I guess we don't have colds anymore, the flu. Well, we don't have flu anymore, we have COVID. Yeah, you're focused on the sneeze, and you're not focused on the actual disease, of which the sneeze is the symptom. Your weight is the symptom of the disease of obesity, and unless you're dealing with that, you're not ever going to get to the place where you need to be. And that's what dieting does. Dieting deals with the symptom rather than dealing with the disease. So, as I said, it isn't food that makes you gain or lose weight. It's what your body does with the food. Your body doesn't differentiate between foods. If you eat a banana versus a piece of bread versus a steak versus a sweet roll, your body doesn't know what any of those things are. You chew it up, it goes into your system, and your system breaks it down into something that's called macronutrients and smaller nutrients as well. But by and large, these macronutrients are what your body looks for and recognizes, and there's only 3 of them: protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Now, if you eat a donut, okay, you're eating carbohydrates and fat. If you eat a steak, you're eating protein and fat. If you eat a lima bean, you're eating carbohydrates. If you eat celery, you're eating carbohydrates. So your body doesn't care. You can go on a celery diet. That's fine. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could. Certainly not as a lifestyle. But the point is that your body doesn't know that it's celery. It just knows that it's carbohydrates. It doesn't know that it's a donut. It just knows that it's fat and carbohydrates. That's all it knows. And then your body deals with the fat, deals with the carbohydrates, deals with the protein, and does things with them. So that's why I say it's not the food that you eat that's the problem. It's what your body does with that food. Your body is going to handle that food in really only one of 2 ways. It's either going to digest the carbohydrates and store the fat. We'll talk about protein in a minute. Or it's going to digest the fat and it's going to store the carbohydrates. That's it. That's all the choices that your body has. If you're eating a lot of carbohydrates, your body is going to digest those carbohydrates, and any fat that you eat, it's going to store. If you're eating low carbs, not many carbs, your body's going to do the opposite. It's going to get into a state where it digests the fat and it stores whatever carbs that you eat. It does one or the other. It doesn't care so much about what you put in your mouth. It cares about what comes to it in the form of those nutrients. Is this making any sense to you at all, or did I leave you all in the dust? All right, so the idea here is, if that's true, if your body is only looking for these 3 things, that means that all of these 115,000 plus diets that are out there, unless they deal with the fundamental function of your metabolism, of how you handle carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, they are not going to be good for you. They're not going to be a diet that is going to maintain optimal health for you. So if you boil it all down, there's really only 3 diets that are available to you. And I don't care what you call them, they all fall into one of these 3 categories. The most common are what's called a low-calorie diet, and the goal there is to eat fewer calories than what you expend. And so if you eat 1,200 calories a day, ideally what you want to do is be involved in a lifestyle, an active lifestyle that burns more than 1,200 calories a day, and that way you will lose weight because you'll be burning calories that you're not eating, so it has to get those calories from somewhere, so it'll get it from the stored fat in your body. It is a fairly easy diet to understand and comprehend. You count calories, you keep track of the calories that you burn, and at the end of the day, you want one number to be less than the other number. The second is, and this was one that was very popular about a decade ago, is the low-fat diet. A low-fat diet essentially says that you just cut fat out of your diet altogether, what you eat altogether, and you just eat carbohydrates and protein. And the theory is, if you're not eating any fat, you're not putting any fat on your body. The only problem with that particular diet, and it's a good diet, it works. The only problem with that particular diet is that it is really more or less a version of the low-calorie diet, because you still have to count calories. You still have to count calories coming in and calories going out, but you're just cutting down on the fat, and that's making it easier for your body to handle the other things that you're eating. And the third option is obviously a low-carb diet, and that's the opposite of the low-fat. In this one, you're trying to eliminate carbs. You're caring less about fat. It isn't an issue or a concern. And so your body is getting to the place where it's not digesting the carbs, it's digesting the fat, and the theory is, and it works, it begins to digest the fat that's stored on your body. So those are the three choices that you have. And according to the American Society of Bariatric Physicians, there are risks with any diet that you have. With a low-calorie diet, one of the great risks is a sense of atrophy, that there are elements of your body, parts of your body that may atrophy, because we as human beings have a tendency to go along the lines of, if a little is good, a lot is better. So if 1,200 calories is good and I'm losing weight, let's try 1,000. And if 1,000 is good and I'm losing weight, let's try 900. Or the opposite, if I'm on a treadmill and I'm burning 1,200 calories. By the way, do you know how long it takes to burn 1,200 calories on a treadmill? About 3 days. Continuous. The idea is that we tend to go toward extremes in these things, because if a little works, then a lot will work more, and that's not always the case. The problem that the physicians, and it says the advantage of a low-calorie diet is that you will lose weight the fastest. That's the quickest way to lose weight, is on a low-calorie diet. The low-fat diet is, you will lose weight, you won't lose as fast as the low-calorie diet, but what the risk there is that there is a risk that your body will develop issues, because one of the things that our body needs for its well-being is essential fatty acids. And if we don't get enough of those essential fatty acids, there's elements of various organs in our body that will shut down. And I don't want to get too technical about it, but that's where it goes. But the advantage of a low-fat diet is it's fairly easy to stay on, because you're less concerned about, all you're really concerned about is eliminating fat from your diet, but you still do have to count calories with it. With a low-carb diet, you have, as I say, reversed the issue to where you're digesting fat and you're not digesting carbohydrates. And the big risk, and this is not me, this is according to the American Society of Bariatric Physicians, the biggest risk with a low-carb diet, quote, apt to crave carbs, close quote. That's it. And it's the truth. Because if you've ever done a low-carb diet, one of the things that you know is, as soon as a few carbs sneak in, the desire for carbs takes off, because there's a certain addiction involved with sugar and other carbohydrates. Now, let's go back to your body for a second. Your body has two, we'll call them pathways for lack of a better term. Your body has two pathways. One of them is called a glycotic pathway, and the other one is called a ketotic pathway. And I don't want to get too technical here, but what we're talking about is, in modern society, in where we live today and the foods that are available today, unless you are specifically on a low-carb diet, you are in this glycotic state, this glycotic pathway, which is your body manufacturing insulin, which is making your body digest carbohydrates and store fat. When you begin to cut carbohydrates out of your diet, what you eat, what happens is that glycotic pathway quiets down and becomes less active, and eventually becomes it never becomes inactive, but it becomes so minimally active that your ketotic pathway becomes dominant. And it's like, if you can envision a seesaw with a really fat kid on one side and a really skinny kid on the other side. And the skinny kid is up in the air permanently with his legs dangling, and there's nothing the skinny kid can do to get down. That's where most of us are, is our glycotic state is the fat kid on the seesaw, and our ketotic state is still there, but it doesn't get any traction because it's beyond. So you can, by reducing carbs, you can skinny down that glycotic kid to the point where he becomes, or she becomes small enough that the ketotic kid comes down to the ground, and now the glycotic kid is up in the air with his feet dangling. And that's when you're in this state that's called ketosis. Why do you care about all of this? Because here's what's happened. I guess it's time for personal testimony. I started a low-carb diet back when it was called the Atkins diet, back in the mid-90s. And I just wanted to lose weight, and I thought it was a diet like, I'm going to do this for, a period of time, lose some weight, and then not. I had high blood pressure. If you looked at my blood work, it was like off the charts. Everything that was bad was high, and everything that was good was low. It was the inverse image of what health should look like. And my doctor, after my most recent physical, looked at me and said, I'm going to have to put you on this series of drugs, and I'm recommending a low-fat diet for you. And I had the blood drawn 2 weeks before, and then a week later, I went on the Atkins diet, and then my appointment to go over my blood work was a week after that. And I said to the doctor, let's do this. I just started this Atkins diet. I think it's going to take care of all of this. And let's draw blood now. And I'll come back in 2 weeks. And if I've not improved, I'll go on your diet. I'll take your meds. But if I'm improved, I'm going to stay on this Atkins diet. She was very skeptical. But what was she going to do? So she said, okay. So she drew blood. I came back 2 weeks later. She literally put a gold star right there. She said, I don't believe it. This makes no sense to me whatsoever, but I cannot argue with the results of this blood draw. I'm going to take more blood. And she did it again. And I came back 2 weeks after that, on her dime, by the way. And it was even better.
Come on.
And she started recommending the Atkins diet to every one of her patients. Now, I don't care what lifestyle you choose. I really don't care. Choose low carb, choose low fat, choose low calorie, but take responsibility for yourself. What I've tried to do is give you enough information that you can make an intelligent choice. If you're still confused, get the book, read it. It's eminently readable. It's an easy read. And there's recipes and stuff in the back because I'm a geek and that's what I do. But it is time, folks. Just like we take the responsibility for being able to show our salvation, being able to show the work of God in us, we need to be able to show the health of God in our bodies. We need to be able to show the goodness of God in even our physical well-being. And if you're going to be here tomorrow, I'm going to expand on this subject a little bit in a talk that I'm going to do on spirit, soul, and body. And it's really going to help you break down some of the barriers that you've had in your life around getting your body into the place where your body needs to be. How many of you have struggled with your body? Honest engine. My hand's up. I struggle. I do. But when you can get something like your weight, this is kind of funny, when you can get your weight under your belt, you know what that does? that reflects into every other area of your life. It's easier to be positive. It's easier to be hope-filled. It's easier to do everything. It's even easier when you're in church to raise your arms because you don't have that thing. Father, I thank you for this group. I thank you for every person in here, and I thank you that they are smart people, that they are tuned in and turned on to your word, your plan for their lives, and that they are taking responsibility for their bodies in Jesus' name. And everybody said,